Picture this, folks. A dark room, the flickering light of a TV screen, and a pair of quirky figures guiding you through a spooky film night. Yes, I'm talking about the magical world of horror host shows, a legacy of entertainment that's been chilling audiences since the 1950s. Our guides through this eerie journey? None other than Janet Decay and Grim-Gory, the faces behind The Mummy and the Monkeys' Harry Scary Hangout, a show streaming live from their home in Cleveland, Ohio. But that's not all, my friends. This tradition of spooky storytelling isn't just limited to television anymore. With the internet age, these horror hosts found new platforms, reaching out to their loyal fan base through YouTube, Amazon, TikTok, and more. And the cherry on top, the Horror Host Hall of Fame, a testament to the legacy of these entertainers. Oh, but wait till you hear who the 2023 inductees were. But I must leave some surprises for later, right? Stay tuned. What's up, my curious and amazing listeners? Ready to unravel another mind-blowing piece of our world's peculiar puzzle? I'm your guide, Caesar, and with me here is the ever-insightful Sonia.
Hello to all our wonderful listeners.
We're stirring the cauldron of curiosities here on the Curiosity Wonderland. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you never miss an episode. Today's tale. You'll need to hold on to your seats for this one. Imagine this, every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, our screens light up with the faces of two rockabilly monsters, Janet Decay and Grim-Gory. Decked out in white scraps of cloth and a gorilla mask respectively, they introduce us to the world of B-horror movies.
Wait, what exactly is a B-horror movie?
Good question. B-horror movies are low-budget films, usually lacking in the high production values of mainstream cinema. They're filled with cheesy effects, over-the-top acting, and often hilariously bad plotlines.
So, these horror host shows, they make fun of the movies?
You got it. The hosts make jokes and wisecracks, breaking up the movie into segments. They're like our tour guides through these cinematic disaster pieces.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Absolutely, it is. And it's not just about the laughter. These hosts also play the role of film preservationists. They share trivia about classic horror actors and dissect the plots of movies, becoming curators of the horror genre.
So, they're not just making fun, they're also educating the viewers about the genre's history?
Exactly. And what's interesting is that horror is one of the only genres that has this strong connection to its past. It's all part of the charm of these horror host shows. These horror host shows do a great job introducing audiences to obscure titles they probably would never come across otherwise. They keep these forgotten movies alive. Can you imagine where else you'd get to see odd films like The Wasp Woman or Shriek of the Mutilated?
Oh wow, those sound like some interesting titles. Could you give us a quick idea of what they're about?
Sure. The Wasp Woman is a 1959 film about a woman who turns into a wasp-like being and terrorizes her community. Shriek of the Mutilated, on the other hand, is a 1974 film that takes us on a wild ride with a yeti on a murderous rampage.
That's intriguing. And you mentioned these shows are uniquely American?
Yes, indeed. While they have appeared in other countries like Australia, the United Kingdom, and Mexico, the format itself originated in Los Angeles and spread across the US.
And these shows, they've been around for a while, right?
Absolutely. The concept of a host guiding an audience through a scary tale predates television. It can be traced back to radio programs during the Great Depression. For example, The Witch's Tale was a radio program that aired from 1931 to 1938.
And what was the role of the host in these programs?
Well, they functioned like storytellers around a nighttime campfire. They would insert their own brand of comic relief, usually dark humor, into the horror stories. A great example would be the Inner Sanctum radio show that aired from 1941 to 1952. The host, Raymond Edward Johnson, would lace every horror story with morbid puns.
So, adding a bit of humor to lighten the otherwise dark themes?
Exactly. And this tradition of dark humor carried on into television, with the first TV horror host, Vampira, portrayed by actress and model Mila Nurmi. So, moving on, let's talk about the woman who started it all, Vampira. Mila Nurmi, originally from Astoria, Oregon, moved to Hollywood in the 1940s to pursue her dreams in show business. Her portrayal of Vampira, inspired by Morticia from the Addams Family cartoons, caught the attention of a producer for Los Angeles station Cap TV.
So, she just showed up at a masquerade ball and landed a TV role?
Exactly, Sonia. Nurmi created a vampy character that hosted a program screening old monster movies. The Vampira Show, which premiered in 1954, established the formula that was duplicated by many shows that followed.
I'm guessing her show was a hit?
Surprisingly, the Vampira Show was short-lived, only appearing from 1954 to 1955. However, the concept quickly spread. Screen Gems, a company in the late 1950s, put together a syndicated movie package, which was then purchased by TV stations around the country at a cheap rate. All the station had to do was find a host.
Like a news anchor pulling double duty?
Yes, like Lisa Clark, a news anchor for Kogo in San Diego, who also portrayed the horror host Mona Lisa. Her show ran from 1963 to 1973. It was an opportunity for these communities to create some self-identity.
So, these horror host shows became a sort of local tradition?
That's right. The people living in that market would consider the host as their horror host. Even today, many people have fond memories of staying up late to watch their beloved local horror host.
Fascinating. What about some regional hits?
One of the biggest regional hits was Ghoulardi, from Cleveland, played by Ernie Anderson, who was a beatnik ghoul. His show aired from 1963 to 1966, paving the way for future shows, like Jay and Harmon's show we talked about earlier. Ghoulardi's show was so popular that it reportedly even caused a dip in juvenile crime on Friday nights when it aired. And Ohio, where Ghoulardi aired, has had more horror hosts per capita than any other state. Some other successful hosts around the country include John Zaccharilli, also known as Roland or Zashirley, and Dick Distel, better known as Count Gore de Volume.
You know, this discussion takes me back to my childhood. I remember my siblings, and I would huddle around the TV late at night to watch the local horror show. We would make popcorn, switch off all the lights, and let the host guide us through the suspenseful tales. The anticipation, the shared laughs, and even the jump scares, it was all such a cherished part of my growing up.
That's a beautiful memory. These hosts certainly played a crucial role in bringing people together and creating such memories. Speaking of hosts, there's an interesting fact about Count Gore de Volume. He was the first host to create his own website and moved his show online in 1998, reaching thousands of digital viewers. He's still active, making appearances as the Count at movie screenings and horror conventions.
Wow, that's impressive. And I'm sure there have been other unique hosts as well.
Absolutely. One fun example is Karen Siley, who hosted Saturday Night Dead as the sultry Stella, daughter of Desire. Her show aired right after Saturday Night Live. Siley even won a local Emmy for her character.
That's fantastic. So, these hosts didn't just introduce movies, they created characters and provided entertainment in their own right.
Indeed. And many of them, like Jay and Harmon, creators of The Mummy and the Monkeys' Harry Scary Hangout, see their show as a creative outlet rather than a career. They balance their passion for the show with other jobs to pay the bills. Now let's talk about the big three of horror hosting: Elvira, Svengoolie, and Joe Bob Briggs. Elvira, portrayed by Cassandra Peterson, was actually a result of a failed attempt to revive the Vampira Show in 1981.
Really? An attempt to revive the Vampira Show led to Elvira?
Yes, the original plan was for a younger actress to play Vampira, while Mila Nurmi, the original Vampira, would play Vampira's mother. However, negotiations fell apart, and the character was renamed to Elvira.
And I'd bet Elvira became quite popular, didn't she?
Absolutely. Elvira's movie Macabre turned her into an icon of the 80s. Her show achieved national syndication and tapped into the growing home VHS market. Elvira became a brand, featuring on pinball games, t-shirts, and even as a spokesperson for Coors and Mugroot beer ad campaigns.
That's impressive. And who exactly is Svengoolie?
Svengoolie was a popular horror host in Chicago, originally played by Jerry Bishop in the 70s. The character, like Ghoulardi, played on the counterculture and was a wild, hippie ghoul. Later, Richard Koz, who had worked with Bishop, took on the role.
So, Svengoolie was more than one person?
Yes, when Bishop declined to reprise the role for a summer replacement show, Koz stepped in, initially as son of Svengoolie in 1979. Eventually, he just became Svengoolie at Bishop's suggestion. Just like that, the legacy of Svengoolie lived on. Svengoolie, currently portrayed by Richard Koz, is now nationally syndicated on the MeTV channel. He has a bit of a running gag when he tells a terrible one-liner. He gets pelted with rubber chickens.
Rubber chickens? That's quite a unique tradition.
Indeed. And according to Koz, they've often been responsible for stores selling out of rubber chickens. In the world of horror hosting, there's a sort of brother or sisterhood. Elvira, Count Gordeval, and others have all shown mutual respect and admiration for each other's work.
It sounds like a very supportive community. And who is Joe Bob Briggs?
Joe Bob Briggs, a redneck Texan character, is another favorite in the horror community, played by John Irving Bloom. He hosted Joe Bob's Drive-In, which premiered in 1986, and now, he hosts The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
So, just like Svengoolie, Joe Bob Briggs is a character that has been passed down?
Not exactly. Joe Bob Briggs is actually a character created and played by John Irving Bloom. But, speaking of characters, let's talk about Dale Wombolt, also known as Dr. Destruction, who hosts his show, Dr. Destruction's Crimson Theater. He is a well-known character in Kenosha, Wisconsin, recognized for his stark black and white makeup, skeletal gloves, and top hat.
So, he's sort of a local celebrity in his town?
Absolutely. He even ran for mayor of Kenosha in 2004, in character as Dr. Destruction. Despite losing the mayoral race, Dr. Destruction's show, Crimson Theater, grew in popularity. Other co-stars even went on to start their own shows. Interestingly, Kenosha, a city with a population of just under 100,000, has the highest number of horror host shows by city.
That must have created quite a local culture. What are some of the other Kenosha-based shows?
There are several, including Hexen Arcane, Nightmare Cinema, and Storm's Eclectic Realm. They screened Plan 9 from Outer Space, a classic horror host movie from 1957, directed by Ed Wood, in the first episode of Crimson Theater.
I've heard of that movie. Isn't it often labeled as the worst movie ever made?
That's right, Sonia. Though some, like horror hosts Jay and Harmon, consider it one of the good bad movies. They even go as far as to threaten to show The Beast of Yucca Flats, a notoriously bad film from 1961, to audiences if they misbehave.
Sounds like they have a sense of humor about these so-called bad films.
Definitely. In fact, they consider George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, another frequently picked horror host film, a Halloween classic. The internet has given contemporary horror hosts even more options, with many reaching audiences on multiple platforms, including YouTube and the Monster Channel.
So, horror hosting has truly evolved with the times.
Absolutely, Sonia. It's a fascinating blend of old and new, preserving the tradition while also adapting to the digital age. It's interesting to see how these horror host shows are adapting to the changing nature of media consumption. A newer show, Stroh's Sinister Cinema, has considered this shift and is even reworking their format to cater to younger generations who prefer shorter content that immediately grabs their attention.
It seems to be a common trend across all mediums, not just horror hosting.
Absolutely. The show, based in York, South Carolina, has a warlock named Papa Stroh and a werewolf named Wolfgang who provide commentary over the movie. They're even expanding their cast to include a social media monster influencer named Cindy Klops.
A social media monster influencer. Now that's something new.
Yes, and they're still learning and developing their format, trying to find the right mix. And speaking of mixing, I want to take a moment to reflect on something Svengoolie's host, Richard Koz, said about the appeal of these shows. He believes that people like having someone to keep them company during the movie, someone to share their love of horror films with. The hosts become like friends to the audience, adding a personal touch to the viewing experience.
That's a nice way to put it. A shared experience, a shared passion.
Exactly. Now, I wonder what our listeners think about this. Do you all enjoy having someone accompany you during a movie? Do you find it entertaining when someone is there to comment and share your love for certain genres? Do let us know.
Also, what do you think makes a good horror host? Is it the personal touch, the time spent on crafting and developing the character, or maybe the mythology around the show? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Interestingly, high production value isn't a must in these shows. Some might argue that the schlock or low-budget feel of these shows actually adds to their charm. For example, there was a host out of Memphis named Watson Davis, also known as Sivod, who had rubber fangs that would flop around impeding his speech, but it was part of his charm.
There's something to be said about the authenticity and character that comes from those constraints, isn't there?
Absolutely. It adds a certain sense of uniqueness and personality to the show. Now, when the original horror host, Mila Nurmi, passed away in 2008, a tribute was organized in her honor at the Horror Hound Convention in Indianapolis. This led to the creation of the Horror Host Hall of Fame.
Talk about a unique group of individuals. I'm guessing the criteria for induction are a little different than your typical Hall of Fame.
Yes, indeed. The ceremony celebrates both the hosts of yesteryear and encourages the next generation of hosts. Over 100 horror hosts attended the first induction in 2011. In fact, it included a memorial to Mila Nurmi, known as Vampira, which was considered one of the largest gatherings of horror hosts ever.
That must have been quite a sight to behold.
Truly. This year the ceremony took place on August 19th. The audience was filled with ghouls, vampires, zombies, mad scientists, and other creatures of the night. The hosts of The Mummy and the Monkey's Harry Scary Hangout, Jay and Harmon's characters Janet Decay and Grim Gory, along with Wombolt's Dr. Destruction, were among the 2023 inductees.
It sounds like horror hosting has a supportive and dedicated community, something that can be hard to find in many professions.
That's really the essence of these shows, isn't it? They provide a distraction from the real world, an escape of sorts. Jay, one of the inductees of the Horror Host Hall of Fame, said her favorite part of being a horror host mummy is providing viewers with some entertainment after a long week.
It's a noble purpose, isn't it? To lighten someone's load, even just for a while.
Absolutely. It's a way of saying, hey, whatever you're going through or struggling with, let's set it aside for a bit. We can watch a movie together and laugh at it. It's about creating a sense of community, a shared experience.
And there's a lot of power in that shared experience, isn't there? It's like a collective release of tension, a communal catharsis.
Yes, it's a way to take your mind off the troubles of the real world, at least for a little while. And in our complex and often stressful lives, that can be a priceless gift. To wrap it all up, we dove deep into the unique world of horror host shows, from Vampira's foggy hallway in the 1950s to Janet Decay and Grim Gory's YouTube hangout in 2023. These shows have served as conduits connecting audiences to obscure horror films and the genre's rich history. They've thrived through the ages, and the digital world has only expanded their reach. Now, that's what I call a scary good time.
Absolutely. And the induction of these hosts into the Horror Host Hall of Fame only further cements their importance and influence in the world of horror. We hope you've enjoyed this journey as much as we have.
And if you did, blast that like button and leave us your thoughts in the comments.
Don't forget to share this episode with your friends so they too can join in on this frightfully delightful discussion.
It's been a pleasure sharing this time with you, as always.
Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Caesar and Sonia, goodbye.
I found this intriguing piece, From Elvira to Svengoolie, Local Horror Hosts Frightfully Fun History on Atlas Obscura. It was penned by T. Krulos and published on October 12, 2023. The full URL will be in the video description for those of you wanting to explore more. And with that, I'm off.